Welcome back, Class 10. Continuing your history revision classes, today we will revise Chapter 3, Objectives and Methods of Struggle of the Early Nationalists. The revision will be according to the syllabus for 2021 ICSE. A little introduction regarding the early nationalists. Among the persons who dominated the Congress from 1885 to 1905, mention should be made of the following. Who dominated? W.C. Banerjee, Rajbihari Bose, Surendranath Banerjee, R.C. Dutt from Bengal, Dadabhai Naruji, Gopalkrishna Gokula, Ranade, Firoz Shah Mehta from Maharashtra and Gujarat, P.R. Naidu, Subramania Iyer and Anand Charlu from Andhra and Tamil Nadu, and Pandit Malaviya from Uttar Pradesh. Liberal Englishmen like Hume, Wedderburn also pleaded India's cause courageously in those days. So, few names you should remember, but mainly you should remember Dadabhai Naruji's name and Surendranath Banerjee's name because they are very important from your examination point of view. So now, let us discuss the prominent leaders in the early days of nationalism. Dadabhai Naruji. Dadabhai Naruji was one of the pioneer means main leader of the freedom movement. Dadabhai Naruji was one of the pioneer Indian statesmen. He came to be known as the Grand Old Man of India. Question often comes, who is known as the Grand Old Man of India? Is Dadabhai Naruji, Naoroji. He was born on 4th September 1825 in a Parsi family in Mumbai. Then it was Bombay. In 1854, he was appointed Professor of Mathematics in the Elphinstone College in Bombay. His struggle to the freedom towards the freedom, and what was his struggle and what was his contribution? Dadabhai's love for nation and his contribution to the nationalist movement may be studied under certain headings. Number 1, India's unofficial ambassador in England. In 1866, Dadabhai founded the East India Association in London. Important from the examination point of view. Its object was to inform the British of the true state of affairs in India. So what was the object of the East India Association? Its object was to inform the Britishers what actually was happening in India. During his long stay in England, he made friendship with eminent Englishmen like Gladstone, Bradlaugh and Bright. He was the first Indian to have won a seat in 1892 in the British House of Commons in the Parliament. As a member of the British Parliament, he rendered admirable service to the cause of India and the people of Indian origin in South Africa. It is due to the effort of Dadabhai Naruji and Bradlaugh that the British House of Commons passed a resolution recommending that ICS examination be held simultaneously both in England and in India. Previously, it was not like that, but due to their effort, resolution was passed and it was changed. The resolution, however, could not become an act, although it was not converted to act. Number 2, one of the founding members of the Indian National Congress. Dadabhai Naruji was one of the founders of the Indian National Congress. Thrice he presided over the sessions of Congress in 1886, in 1893 and in 1906. His presidentship of Congress in 1906 was memorable in many ways. Why? The partition of Bengal was in 1905 and had very sadly disillusioned many early nationalists. The early nationalists had that illusion in their mind that Britishers will listen to them and they will keep the promise, which they did not. So they were disillusioned. Their power and prestige were on the decline. Therefore, They therefore persuaded Dadabhai to preside over Kolkata session in the Congress of 1906. Dadabhai's name and fame made it difficult for the assertive nationalists to oppose his candidature. Assertives means more radical movement, those who believed in radical movement. Since Dadabhai was a very respectable person, they did not disagree or oppose this candidature. Although they would like Tilak to hold the office, they always wanted Bal Gangadhar Tilak to be the president of 1906 session, but they did not oppose because Dadabhai Naruji was a very senior leader, very respected leader. His historic address to Kolkata during the session of 1906. Dadabhai's historic address, read out by Gopalkrishna Gokula due to Dadabhai's ill health, laid stress on the attainment of Swaraj. The Congress session of 1906 passed resolution on Swaraj, Swadeshi, boycott and national education. Now, number 4 point. His enunciation of the nature of British imperialism and cause of poverty in India, his famous drain theory and views of Indian economy. Very important. Dadabhai edited Rast Guftar, Speaker of Truth. Name is important. He also started a magazine, Dharam Marg Darshak. He was a great thinker and writer. Dadabhai's view on Indian economy and exploitation of India could be gathered in his classic work, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. Name is important. Through his famous drain theory is important. He explained how India's wealth was being taken away to England in these forms. What were the forms? Number 1, salaries payable to the members of the Indian Council. Number 2, dispatch of savings to India by British personnel posted in India. Pensions of the British officers, that is number 3. Number 4 is payments to the War Office for maintenance of British troops in India. And number 5, profits of British trading agencies. So this was his drain theory. Question might come. Okay, The Hindu, an English daily, stated that as an authority of Indian economics, there is none equal to Dadabhai Naruji, all in India. His number 5 point is his advocacy of just political system. Just political system means equality for all. Dadabhai believed that justice constituted the real basis of political power, but not brute force. Dadabhai passed away in 1917, 1917. He was a great life, nobly lived, spanning over 9 decades. He was a professor, legislator, thinker, and statesman. His life was glorious saga of devotion to duty. He said, indeed, a pathfinder of Indian nationalism. So this is all about Dadabhai Naruji according to your syllabus. Now comes Surendranath Banerjee. Born in 1848, Surendranath Banerjee is often called the Indian Burke. Like Edmund Burke, he combined knowledge with the capacity to move audience. His speech moved audience through his oratory. Oratory means speech. Surendranath graduated in 1868. He successfully competed for ICSE examination in 1869 and was appointed Assistant Magistrate of Sylhet, now in Bangladesh. Some charges were framed against him. As a result, in 1873, he was dismissed from the service. Professor of English. After his dismissal from the Indian Civil Service, Surendranath became Professor of English in Metropolitan Institution. Later, he joined Free Church College at Calcutta. In 1882, he started a school which later grew into a college, that is Lord Ripon College. Surendranath College is also there. His contribution to India's freedom struggle. Surendranath Banerjee drew much inspiration from the great Italian nationalist Joseph Mazzini, 1805 to 1872. Surendranath's contribution to India's freedom struggle are as, number 1, fight against injustice and repression. Surendranath took to public life in 1876, the year in which he founded the Indian Association. The object of the association was to agitate for the introduction of political reforms in India. In 1877, the age limit for civil service examination was reduced from 21 to 19. Surendranath made a tour of India protesting against the reduction of maximum age limit. He fearlessly criticized such measures as Arms Act and Vernacular Press Act. Number 2. Elective offices were just a means to serve people. Surendranath was elected to Kolkata Corporation in 1876 and was there for more than 2 decades. He was elected to the Bengal Legislative Council in 1894, 1896 and 1900. Surendranath transformed his civic and political duties into means to serve the people. Number 3. Convened Indian National Conference in 1883. Convene means he called, he arranged, he organized. And it was a pillar of Congress in the early days. Surendranath, precursor of Congress. Surendranath took the lead in convening the Indian National Conference in 1883. It was the first organization of all India character. In 1885, the Indian National Congress was born. Indian National Conference welcomed the birth of Congress and soon became a merger of two bodies. Twice he presided over the sessions of Congress in 1895 and in 1902. Now comes his role as a journalist. For several years, Surendranath edited the Bengali, which had been founded by W.C. Banerjee. This paper was very much criticized the Ilbert Bill and the Vernacular Press Act. Now comes number 5. A firm believer in India's right to self-government. He was a firm believer in India's right to self-government. His best-known book is A Nation in Making. Then comes number 6. Constitutional means for attainment of India's goals. His principle was opposition where necessary, cooperation where possible. Beautiful. He disapproved of violent activities. He urged Indians to boycott foreign goods. He supported the Swadeshi movement. For him, firm resistance to partition, he was called Mr. Surrender, not Banerjee. However, he would not sanction act of violence. He was a non-violent supporter, but he was firm in what he believed. Now comes Gopalkrishna Gokula. He was known as the political guru of Gandhi because violence had no place in his scheme of things. Moreover, in 1912, Gopalkrishna Gokula had gone to South Africa, at the invitation of Gandhi, who needed his support for the Satyagraha campaign there. He was in South Africa for 26 days, and the credit for bringing back Gandhi into Indian political scene goes to Gopalkrishna Gokula. Gopalkrishna Gokula was born in 1866 at Kolhapur in Maharashtra. He graduated from Elphinstone College in Bombay in 1884. At the young age of 20, he became the professor of history and economics at Fergusson College in Pune. For 4 years, he edited Sudharak, a quarterly journal, and Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. In 1904, he was awarded the title of CIE, Companion of the Indian Empire. During his visit to England in 1905, he tried to persuade the British statesmen not to give effect to the partition of Bengal. He, however, failed in his efforts. Now, Gokula's contribution to the freedom struggle. Gokula's contribution to Indian freedom struggle can be summed up as foremost among the Congress leaders. He was one of the most respected leaders of Congress. He presided over the Varanasi session of Indian Congress in 1905. He was a man with moderate views and immense faith in British liberalism. Gokula argued that the goal of Congress should be the attainment of a form of government similar to which existed in the self-governing colonies of the British Empire. Number 2, his faith in constitutional means to achieve goal. Gokhale believed in constitutional agitation, that means petitions, appeals, passive resistance. At the same time, he supported the Swadeshi movement. He made a long plea for the reform of Legislative Council and separation of judiciary from executive. He established the Servants of India Society in 1905, important. The society trained men to devote their lives to the cause of the country. Arousal of national awakening. In 1902, Gokhale had become the member of the Imperial Legislative Council. In his speeches in the council, he pleaded for the reduction of salt duty and abolition of excise on cotton. In 1910 and 1912, he moved resolutions in Imperial Legislative Council for the relief of Indians bonded labored in Natal. In one of his budget speeches, he pleaded for free primary education for all children. Gokhale would like Indians to be given a large share of Indian civil service. Then comes his work abroad. In a paper which read at the New Reform Club, London, he said that India's destiny is to obtain an honored place among the family of nations. His economic ideas, Gokhale was deeply pained to see the increasing misery of the peasantry, that means the farmers. He pleaded for the reduction of land revenue. He was in favor of state protection to Indian industries. He called for the employment of members of the educated middle class. And he died in 1915 at a premature age of 49. But before I end this chapter, you should remember the name of the two presidents of the Congress. The first session was in 1885 in Bombay, and the name of the president was W.C. Banerjee. Second session was in 1886 in Calcutta, and it was presided by Dadabhai Naruji. So with this, we come to the revision of chapter 3 of History, Objectives and Methods of Struggle of the Early Nationalists. Thank you.